Okay, well, let's get started. Well, again, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We know folks are busy this time of year with a lot happening, so we really appreciate your taking some time to join us today. This is one of a number of a series of webinars that Building Action has put on over the last couple of years to really highlight the important role that transforming America's buildings plays in helping us address some of our biggest challenges in this country, including the environment, job creation, improving our infrastructure, making our communities more resilient and more vibrant. And we are really delighted to be joined as a sponsor on today's webinar with Carrier Corporation. Meredith Emmerich, I see there, is kind of my co-host today. Before we begin, a little bit about Building Action. Building Action is a fairly new coalition, started about a year ago, that I co-founded with former Congressman Russ Carnahan of Missouri. Many of you may know Congressman Carnahan, when he was on Capitol Hill, was a real leader on building issues. He was the co-founder of the Congressional High Performance Building Caucus, which was the first ever caucus in the U.S. House that really focused on buildings. I got to know Russ when I worked with the American Institute of Architects, one of the groups that work closely with the coalition. And really, Building Action began as a result of discussions that Russ and I had going back about 2 years ago. And we started with the proposition that the building sector is such such an important aspect of our economy, of our environmental and climate picture, and yet we could do so much more to make sure that buildings are part of the policy agenda here in Washington. And so what we did was we went around and we really began talking with a lot of folks and building out a very broad coalition that's made up of both the folks who create buildings, from finance and design, construction, operation, materials, products, and those, of course, who use buildings and across all sectors: commercial, residential, public, institutional, you name it. And we launched Building Action back in 2020. We were actually going to have a launch event on Capitol Hill mid-March of 2020. Of course, it did not happen because of the pandemic, but we've gone to a more virtual platform since then and have brought together policymakers with the building community to both highlight the important role that buildings play in our economy and in our environment, and really work to advocate for policies that move buildings forward. Well, right now, of course, we're in the midst of a very big debate in Washington over infrastructure and a lot of other key issues, everything from climate and resilience to equity, workforce, and a whole bunch of other issues that are part of some of the big bills that are coming before Congress. And so the timing right now to talk a bit about how housing plays into this is really great. We are delighted to have Congressman Ed Perlmutter of Colorado, who has been a true leader on Capitol Hill on many issues, but certainly on sustainable, affordable housing. And we'll follow up his time with a panel of some experts from a very diverse group of stakeholders within the housing industry. But for right now, what I really like to do is welcome all of you. If you have questions, either for the congressman or for the panel, I encourage you to put them into the chat box, and we will try to get to as many as we possibly can. But with that, it's my pleasure to introduce my co-host for today's webinar and turn over to Meredith. Meredith?
Thanks so much, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Excited for the opportunity today to be part of the discussion around creating sustainable, affordable housing and transforming our futures. I'm Meredith Emmerich. I have the opportunity to work for Carrier and lead our commercial HVAC team here in North America. You know, my responsibility is ensuring that Carrier is providing commercial building HVAC solutions, from equipment to controls, and servicing them to meet the needs of our buildings, our owners, and occupants around the country. You know, a little bit about Carrier as the sponsor and partner today. As the global leader of healthy, safe, sustainable, and intelligent building solutions, Carrier innovates to address the planet's most complex challenges including climate change, which is a big part of what we're talking about, which has implications for where we live, what we eat, drink, our health. Buildings in the US alone consume approximately 40%. 40% of all energy, and within buildings, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems account for approximately 40% of this energy use. Carrier continues to develop solutions and technologies that reduce energy consumption, greenhouse gas emissions of our products in use. We also set an ambitious 2030 ESG goal to reduce our customers' carbon footprint by more than 1 gigaton. Reducing by more than 1 gigaton by leveraging our energy efficient products using lower GWP refrigerants and sustainably expanding the cold chain in emerging economies to avoid food loss. To illustrate the ambition of this goal, 1 gigaton is 1 billion metric tons, that's equal to the carbon sequestered by more than 1.2 billion acres of US forests. One of the ways we intend to meet this goal will be invest over $2 billion to develop healthy, safe, sustainable, and intelligent building technologies and solutions that incorporate sustainable design principles and reduce our life cycle impacts. We've consistently invested in energy efficient technologies and solutions to assist our customers in lowering energy demand and associated greenhouse gas emissions. For instance, in 2020, the installation of our high efficiency and lower GWP refrigerant products and avoided food waste to help avoid approximately 68 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, which is equal to the energy use of more than 8 million US homes in 1 year alone. We are also actively engaged with policymakers, regulatory authorities, trade associations, NGOs, and other stakeholders working collaboratively to pursue and implement industry-wide policies and initiatives that drive sustainability by promoting greater energy efficiency and, again, lower greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, we recently rolled out climate change policy principles which drive our advocacy in DC, and not surprisingly, energy efficiency and electrification are two extremely important priorities for us here at Carrier. We are proud of the progress we have made to date, and we are committed to being the world leader in healthy, safe, sustainable, and intelligent buildings. And with that, I would now like to take the opportunity to introduce and welcome Congressman Ed Perlmutter, who represents the 7th District of Colorado. We are honored to have him here today join us for this webinar to discuss sustainable homes and buildings, and appreciate his time during a very, very busy Congress session. Our representative has been a true champion for the building sector since being elected to Congress in 2006. He is a lifelong resident of Jefferson County, Colorado. He attended Jefferson County Public Schools and then worked in construction with his father during the summers while in law school and at the University of Colorado. In 1994, he was elected to the Colorado State Senate as the first Democrat to hold the seat in nearly 30 years. He served 2 terms and garnered the reputation as a bipartisan bridge builder and a champion of renewable energy and smart growth policies. In the 117th Congress, he serves on 4 committees in the House: Financial Services, Science, Space, and Technology, Rules, and the Select Committee on the Modernization of Congress. On the Financial Services Committee, he served as the chair of the Consumer Protection and Financial Institutions Subcommittee. In 2008, Representative Perlmutter was named chair of the Financial Services Committee Energy Efficiency Task Force, and through his work on this task force, first introduced comprehensive legislation to improve energy efficiency of America's housing stock. His bill passed the full House of Representatives as part of a broader climate legislation in 2009. Representative Perlmutter is continuing to lead efforts on Capitol Hill to make sure that affordable, sustainable housing is on the agenda. In June, he introduced the Green Neighborhood Act as an important bill which would encourage greater energy efficiency and sustainability in the nation's housing supply while creating new jobs in the green economy. Carrier is proud to support the Green Neighborhood Acts, and we thank you for your leadership and commitment to the development of a greener, more sustainable community around the country.
Thank you, Meredith. That was quite an introduction. I really appreciate it. And And just, I have some prepared remarks, but I want to thank Building Action. I want to thank Carrier, the Climate Lobby, and the AFL-CIO. So you have a number of panelists who I've worked with in the past to deal with this pressing problem. I am sitting in my office in Lakewood, Colorado. I sit up on top of a hill. I look north towards Boulder, Colorado, and ultimately towards Wyoming. And in Colorado, we pride ourselves of our beautiful skies, our beautiful environment. And for the better part of this summer, we've had nothing but haze from the huge fires taking place in California. So as I'm looking out towards the north, what should be 100 miles, I ought to be able to see. Lucky if I can see 5 miles because of this haze. And that's the reason that the issues that Meredith was just talking about, that Andrew was talking about, who I've worked with for years when he was at the AIA and now with Building Action, is so important. Energy efficiency, renewable energy, water conservation, those are so key to the future of our country and our planet that, whatever we can do in the legislation that is coming before us on infrastructure or the Build Back Better reconciliation bill is what we must do. So I have some prepared remarks. I'd like to read those and then be very happy to take questions. As Meredith read, I'm on a lot of committees that have much input on these big energy and environmental bills that we have coming before us through the course of this month. So one of my longstanding priorities in Congress has been helping our country transition to a greener and more energy efficient economy. According to the Energy Information Administration, residential buildings account for more than 21% of our nation's overall total energy expenditures. And as Meredith said, buildings account for at least 40% of that. Only the transportation and industrial sectors consume more energy than what we use to heat and cool our homes, run our appliances, and keep the lights on. If we're going to meet and exceed the goals of the Paris Climate Accord, improving the efficiency of our homes must be part of the solution. I introduced similar legislation in 2008, the GREEN Act, which at that time stood for Green Resources for Energy Efficient Neighborhoods Act. I worked with labor, I worked with the architects and planners and engineers to put that together, and many of those provisions were passed by the full House as part of H.R. 6899, the Comprehensive Energy Security and Consumer Protection Act. Last year, I restarted efforts to again put together a bill to encourage greater energy efficiency and sustainability in the nation's housing supply while creating new jobs in a green economy. The Green Neighborhoods Act creates incentives for new energy efficient housing and retrofits, standardizes the incorporation of energy efficiency in appraisals, improves utility benchmarking, helps develop a skilled workforce for green jobs, and much more. At a time when it's needed most, this bill is a win-win-win for families, for workers, and for the environment. Green neighborhoods would require HUD to implement energy efficiency incentives for new and existing housing. Specifically, new or existing single-family or multifamily residences would be eligible for 2 levels of incentives based on their ability to meet basic or enhanced energy efficiency standards. By using incentives rather than strict mandates, we will make utilities in HUD-assisted housing more affordable without driving up the cost of rent for the families. The bill would also require new data detailing the current state of energy and water usage in the multifamily property sector, as well as estimates of potential energy and cost savings of energy efficiency programs implemented in HUD-assisted properties. The legislation would also require HUD to collect and analyze utility benchmarking data from HUD-assisted properties and develop energy savings targets. HUD spends an estimated $6.4 billion on energy usage annually. By understanding best practices and meeting realistic goals, we can improve energy usage across HUD-assisted properties, potentially saving the agency and taxpayers billions over the long run. This bill encourages the development of greener, more sustainable neighborhoods and communities while creating new jobs in the green economy, unleashing technological innovation and strengthening our energy independence. By prioritizing energy conservation and sustainable development, we can make energy efficiency practices more affordable and more accessible. As the House begins on developing specific provisions of the Build Back Better plan, which is the reconciliation package my staff and I are working on, to add provisions that support the overall bill. Specifically, we're asking the Financial Services Committee to adopt a minimum energy conservation code standard for federal funded housing, and where feasible, encourage and incentivize green home certification, all electric construction, and zero net energy achievement. Thanks again for having me, Meredith. I appreciate that kind introduction. I appreciate the U.S. Green Building Council for the support that they've given me over the years, Carrier Global for sponsoring today's webinar, and for all the others that are participating today. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Congressman, for your comments and for your leadership on this. And I would add, having worked with you back with the architects years ago, that your commitment to this is not just it's not just skin deep. It's something that you're very passionate about and have worked on, not just in Congress, but even before that when you were in the Colorado State Legislature. And so I think all of us who are in the building sector appreciate the seriousness and the passion that you give to the issue. If you have a couple of minutes, we have some questions from some of the folks in the audience that we'd like to share with you. First, the question I guess that I would have is, one of the pushbacks we hear sometimes when talking about energy efficient or green housing is that the more you try to make buildings or houses more efficient, it raises the cost, which kind of goes against the goals of affordability. And some people say that affordability and sustainability are exclusive. How do you kind of respond to that, or how do we kind of make clear that you can do both?
Well, I think what we're asking, particularly of the appraisers in terms of valuing these properties, is to take into account the energy savings that one has by incorporating energy efficiency, water conserving kinds of efforts. The sustainability itself saves money. And so we can anticipate utility costs going up. We certainly know water in the West, we know the water costs are going up. We just had a call on the Colorado River, first time in history, where the states of, I think, Arizona and California will have to cut back on irrigation for all of the lettuce fields and all of the agriculture they have because of water conservation things. So the utility costs are going to go up, and we need to have sustainable features to our new housing stock to save money and help people afford those utility costs. So they're not mutually exclusive. They really are about saving money and saving the planet at the same time.
Right. No, that's a great answer. And certainly, I mean, one thing we can say is that the increased challenges of climate change, the hazardous, what we're seeing now in the Gulf Coast with Hurricane Ida, not to mention all of the challenges out west. I mean, those cost people money and are really creating a big challenge for affordability also. Question that came from the audience from one of the attendees is talking about carbon pricing on the support. That's sort of an idea that's of course been out there a lot. And the question is, what are the prospects for something like that, a carbon price, getting into the one of the bills that's coming up, either the reconciliation bill or the infrastructure bill, or something that Congress is doing right now?
Okay, well, to the person who asked that question, thank you. That's a good one. So let's just talk about what's on tap for the House of Representatives over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks. So by the end of September, we have 2 giant pieces of legislation that we will consider over the course of the next month. The first is the infrastructure package that was put together in the Senate and passed to us about 3-4 weeks ago. That is a huge piece of legislation dealing with roads and bridges, with the electrical grid, with water systems across the country, broadband. Those are the key components. The other piece of legislation is the Build Back Better plan that the Biden administration proposed out on the campaign trail and is now being developed. And it's at this point, $3 trillion over the next 10 years that would be focused on a whole variety of things, but where the infrastructure is investment in sort of capital assets, roads and bridges and things like that. The reconciliation bill is an investment in people and in our environment. So there'll be a healthcare component, there'll be an education component, and within everything, there will be an environmental component. That whatever we do be sustainable, that be one of the key considerations in that legislation. So as part of the financial services package, as I was saying, there will be a big housing component. And in that housing component, we want to have kind of the things that I was talking about, the sustainability and energy efficiency and water saving pieces to it. The carbon pricing would come out of another committee, probably Ways and Means or the Energy and Commerce Committee. It will be certainly something that's considered in the whole process, because it may be part of what will be a revenue stream to help pay for these investments that we're making, both in the capital assets as well as the human, the people of America. So I think you're just going to have to keep your eye on the screen and watch closely. It will start in the Ways and Means Committee if we're going to do carbon pricing. It is something that we've considered a number of years ago, and it definitely is a feature that I think will be, potentially part of the reconciliation package, the Build Back Better package, to help pay for all these investments.
Great, thank you so much. Another question, if I could ask, comes from talking about Carrier and as an example of a company that is really pushing the envelope on creating more efficient equipment, HVAC equipment, and so on. And you have a private sector where I think there is a lot of interest in really pushing further and creating much better, much more efficient housing components and building components. The question is, what can Congress do? What are the things that Congress can do to really help that along and really help to make sure that products like that can be developed and get to market?
Well, I think what we're trying to, let's just take the Green Neighborhoods Act as an example. What we're trying there is the public sector, the federal government is a huge customer, okay, buy a lot of stuff. And the housing components through HUD and the efforts that we're going to make to build more housing. So senior housing, housing for disabled, housing for low income. There really is a big section of the Build Back Better bill that will be new investment in housing. And if as part of that new investment in housing, we provide incentives for energy efficiency, for renewable energy, for water conservation, that will provide a company like Carrier with a big customer that's looking for the most advanced appliances, most advanced HVAC systems, so that we can have sustainable, efficient federal housing for people that, saves money and provides them with a comfortable place to live.
Great, thank you. If I could just ask one last question. The building sector is so broad and so diverse. It's everybody from architects and builders and product manufacturers, home builders, insurance, environmental groups, labor, business, you name it. It can feel sometimes, you talk to folks in the sector, that when you consider the size of the sector and the importance to the economy, that it doesn't always advocate or always, kind of get as much attention as it should. And obviously there are members like you who get it and do that. But what can the building sector do to really make sure that policymakers in Washington and even at the state level really understand the importance of looking at buildings as an opportunity to create jobs, improve the environment, make communities stronger and safer?
Well, I think precisely what you're trying to do, Andrew, you and Russ, in creating a coalition of organizations and labor to advance energy efficiency and sustainability kinds of measures. So from a public policy standpoint, to make sure that a member of Congress or somebody in a state legislature or whatever, has business and labor backing in trying to deal with these massive issues we have concerning climate change and extreme weather. So I think just, between the architects have always been focused on this kind of stuff. Labor is really interested because it's the jobs of the future, and Carrier and companies like that are in the business see that they need to be part of the solution to that haze that I'm looking at, from my office here in Colorado, that all of us play a big role in this. And so I think that by developing these coalitions and saying to folks, look, we want to be part of the solution here, and we've got some good ideas, and we want to help shape legislation that really deals with our environment, our climate, and the future. That's how it works. And so I just appreciate you putting on this webinar and working on this subject along with me for a very long time. And as I said, you've got some great panelists coming up. Many of them I've worked with, many of whom I've worked with over time, from the climate lobby to the labor folks to to the architects to the Green Building Council. So thank you for including me in your webinar today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for taking time. We know how busy you are back home right now, and of course, coming back to Washington fairly soon. You guys have a very busy fall and a lot of really important things to take up. So we appreciate your time with us today, and of course, we really appreciate your leadership on these issues, and certainly the building sector wants to continue working with you.
That reminds me, so for the next 30 days, your advocacy on these subjects is key. This is going to be a very intense month on some very big infrastructure and building pieces of legislation, and you're going to need to engage all your members because this month is big.
Great. Well, that is a great marching order for all of us, and a great reminder that we all have to speak up. So again, we can't thank you enough, Congressman, for joining us today and everything you're doing. Thank you so much, and hope you keep looking to us for support and help as you deal with these very important issues coming up. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great. Well, again, thanks to the Congressman for joining us. I am now going to turn it over to Meredith, my co-host here today. And for a panel, we have a group of some very smart people who work in very different aspects of green affordable housing. And I think we'll have a lot of perspective to share, both about what the Congressman had said, as well as other issues that relate to these issues. So now I'd love to throw it over to Meredith to start the panel.
Thanks, Andrew. And to follow up on those comments, Carrier is very much committed to helping improve buildings in terms of energy efficiency, sustainability, making our cities, our infrastructure more greener, and investing in technology and R&D. And so excited that we've got 3 experts here that'll help facilitate a discussion around greener and more sustainable housing, whether single family or multifamily across the country. So we're going to go ahead and get started. What I'd ask of each one of our panelists is, as you answer your first question or share your thoughts, please give a little bit of background about you and yourself. So first question, what can and should Congress do to increase the sustainability and affordability of housing here in America? And I pose this question to all of you. So Todd, let's go ahead and start with you.
Great. Thanks so much for inviting me. My name is Todd Nedwick. I'm the Senior Director of Sustainability Policy at the National Housing Trust. We're a nonprofit that is dedicated to preserving and improving existing affordable housing. And I think, too often, sustainability and affordability are addressed in silos, right? So you have your housing affordability programs, you have your sustainability programs that are authorized by different committees, and the programs don't often work well in tandem. And so I think what we really need is a holistic approach to addressing both affordability and sustainability together. The affordable housing industry has come a long way in terms of embracing sustainability, but remains very challenging to cobble together various funding sources that are needed to maximize sustainability. So we need to streamline that process. And the good news is that Congress has done this before. As part of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, Congress created a green retrofit program at HUD, which provided grants and loans of up to $15,000 per housing unit to make energy and water upgrades in federally assisted housing. And in exchange for that funding, owners had to commit to 15 years of affordability. And that program was a success because it was really structured in a way that tailored it to the needs of affordable housing. And there's a similar concept that was included in the Housing is Infrastructure Act that the House Financial Services Committee recently released that would create a similar multifamily greening and preservation program and would authorize $75 billion to provide grants to owners of federally assisted housing to make energy efficiency, electrification, renewable energy, resilience upgrades. And so we're working to ensure that proposal is included in the final budget reconciliation package. It's exactly the kind of holistic approach to addressing affordability and the sustainability that I think we need to see.
Great, thanks, Todd. Absolutely. And Jason, would you mind sharing your thoughts on how we increase sustainability and affordability of housing as well?
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me today. The few things that I was thinking about is, I think we should start increasing and enforcing building construction standards on the residential market. Make sure that the houses are built to the standards, and make sure that the efficiency of the new homes is actually adhered to, and that the municipalities are monitoring and making sure that those standards are upheld. I think that using recycled materials is a great way to help with affordability. Also, it's great for the environment, and I encourage that every day. And I think that using American-made products are a really important part of our business, and to ensure that workers can afford their homes in the same place where they're building the products for those homes. So I think those are my comments on that particular item. I appreciate the time.
Great, thanks, Jason. And Phil, you're up next.
Yes, I'm Phil Nelson. I'm with Citizens Climate Lobby. I chair the chapter in Golden, Colorado that interacts with Ed Perlmutter and his staff. We're a very, very lucky chapter to be able to work with this forward-looking group in the U.S. Congress. We have chapters all across the country, in every congressional district across the country, and we work steadfastly to get a price on carbon and to take the monies from that pricing and have it distributed to every household in the country. It's a idea that has been put into a bill and introduced in the past several congressional sessions. So that's our mantra, and that's our goal, is to get a price on carbon that will gradually increase with time and make hydrocarbons more expensive. In terms of the question, what should Congress do to increase the sustainability and affordability of housing? I think we've got a great example just presented to us by Representative Perlmutter, and that's the Green Neighborhoods Act that he has done so much work to put together. It's evolved over the years and has a great deal of work and thought put into it. So I hope the building associations and the building community can get behind that bill.
Great, thanks so much. And I think, that really starts to paint a complete picture on, what we would recommend working with Congress, how we can help in increasing the sustainability and affordability of our housing across the country. So a lot of good opportunity there. And so we'll move on to the next question. And Jason, I'm going to tee this one up for you, sir. We keep hearing about a silver tsunami with workers in the construction sector retiring at a fast pace. I know we're seeing it as well in the carrier side, and fewer people coming up through the pipeline. How do we address the talent gap while also making the workforce more inclusive as well as diverse?
Thank you for that question. This is one of my favorite ones to talk about, as I'm entering into that silver tsunami myself. After 26 years in the trades, I am actually eligible for retirement myself now, and the baby boomers are just now starting to go. So interestingly enough, I'm not a baby boomer. However, people are starting to move that direction. And if both groups, my group and the baby boomers, start retiring all at the same time, we don't have enough people to follow behind. And we could use, and we need everybody that's interested in being, in the industries for high quality jobs that provide great livings and great lifestyles for families. We need to start considering this. And so at the same time, what is necessary is to make sure that when money is being spent on new industries and we're developing new industries in construction, much like renewable energy, that registered apprenticeships with the U.S. Department of Labor or state apprenticeship agencies are used so that, first of all, they're already prepared to start training on the new renewable markets. They're already well established, many over 50 to 75 years of experience in training new people for good jobs with retirement benefits and health benefits. I think it's necessary that we continue to bring that all around at all time, right? And so what we also have done here in the Denver area in conjunction with the municipalities is we do area hiring. We make sure that when a project happens, that we're interested in making sure that the workers come from the areas or zip codes to be able to develop those particular projects. Keep Jobs in Colorado Act was the act that kind of brought that to light, to make sure that the products as well as the workers are from Colorado first to build out the products. I think that's good for every state. It's not just in Colorado. However, it's what we've done in Colorado. And I think that it's been pretty dang successful. That also gets us into low-income, underserved communities and gives opportunity for those who want it to be able to develop their crafts and skills in the skilled trades or non-skilled trades alike. Or if they want to be truck drivers, that's an option too, right? Through the Teamsters or whatever the truck driving agency they want to do with it. So I think all three of those things, right? For great jobs, we want them to make sure they go to US DOL apprenticeships. And of course, we always want them to come to the unions so that they have great benefits and opportunities. And then the registered apprenticeships, again, create that pathway that have already been developed and are willing to work with the new renewable energy sector and make sure, heck, we've talked about the new the efficiency in buildings. Me as a past sheet metal worker, we've always been building efficient. Now we're just building more efficient with the equipment, much from like you see from Courier and other products out there. So we've already been doing it. We just look forward to the other markets starting to build into what we're already doing. So anyways, I appreciate it. I hope that gets to the question and answers what you're looking for. So thanks so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I would say, a big part of who Carrier is in the community are the installation specialists, the technicians, right, that are taking care of the equipment across the country, whether installing it and servicing it. And it's our mission to make sure they have the latest and greatest in not only knowledge and training, but technology as well. So that's why you see us continuing to expand our lineup of efficient and sustainable products, whether it's our high efficient gas furnaces or our Carrier Infinity hybrid heat system. But we also offer a full lineup of highly efficient heat pump systems, right, with smart controls that provide both, really excellent cooling and heating. So working together, just like you said, with the community, the technicians, the installation specialists, the sales teams, on really going out there and educating across America for this. So, I think with that, the part that comes through is, continuing to make this workforce more diverse and inclusive. That's Carrier's commitment to our employees, to our team members, and to the country, right? To continue to work with those local trade schools, community colleges across the country, so we can continue to expand. So, absolutely in support, Jason, and thank you so much for sharing that. All right, so the next question that we have on the docket that's coming through is, what aspects of Representative Perlmutter's Green Neighborhoods Act do you especially like? And Phil, I would really like to hear from you on this one. I think you've got a lot to share.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'll take a crack at that. There are a lot of things to like in this Green Neighborhoods Act. The first up is, as a former government employee, I can testify that things move better if there's just one agency that's thinking about this. And this act is directed at one department, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that's one feature. The second feature is the breadth of the act. It is directed at single family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, manufactured housing. Get that? Manufactured housing is included. And so we're talking about virtually every type of housing for every citizen of the country. So the breadth is tremendous of those that are within reach of HUD. So that's the second feature. There's another feature, as I once worked on a project with Habitat for Humanity, and this bill has a provision for helping the nonprofits, and nonprofits can have a viable niche, I think, in building in America. They can do things that might be a little bit different. But the big key to the Perlmutter bill is energy savings. Energy savings, as Representative Perlmutter pointed out, the housing industry just follows transportation and industry in terms of its energy consumption. So energy savings in buildings are key to the energy transition that we're undergoing. And energy efficiency has, according to a recent study, is now down there with wind and solar in terms of the levelized cost of energy in dollars per megawatt hour, dollars of investment per megawatt hour of energy. So that is a key, that it is really competitive with wind and solar in terms of the investment money. And as a final point here I want to make is that energy efficiency will be more readily achieved with a price on carbon. We think that a gradually rising price on carbon will help achieve the goals of achieving greater energy efficiency. So thank you.
Well, thanks so much. And we agree as well. I think at Carrier, our vision here is to create solutions for people on the planet, and the Green Neighborhoods Act is a very, very important step towards energy efficiency across the nation for whether it's a single family home, multifamily, or even manufacturing, right? So we can cover housing across the country, make it more energy efficient and more sustainable. So thank you, Phil. Thank you very much. All right. Actually, Phil and Todd, I'm going to come back to you with the next one. The building sector is extremely broad and diverse, which can make it hard to coalesce around policy ideas to support. How can the building sector strengthen its advocacy in order to make sure that policies that foster more sustainable buildings get addressed? So Phil, since you just finished up, why don't you go ahead and answer this next question, and then we'll pull in Todd.
Okay. I think it's nice that this question is directed at the building sector as a whole, at the building industry. And here's a great chance for the consortia, the different sectors of the building industry, and the people who do the lobbying to really get behind the bills like the Green Neighborhoods Act, and there are other ones that also foster standards and foster energy savings. So that's the action that the building sector through its advocacy roles and its lobbying capability can undertake. And then I think the building sector should also begin to consider in the political sphere, begin to consider the virtue of a price on carbon for the building industry, remembering that this is something that would rise gradually, that the time scale of that rise is going to be comparable, can be made comparable to the kinds of time frame that the building sector needs to consider. So those are the two aspects that I would encourage.
And I would just, oh, sorry. Yeah, I would just add, I mean, I would just, build on what the Congressman said in terms of the first step being bringing everyone together at the same table to talk about what the common goals are and sort of organize around that. We've had success with bringing diverse groups together through our Energy Efficiency for All initiative that NHT is a part of, that includes environmental organizations, health organizations, consumer rights organizations, all coming with different perspectives on the issues, but we were able to come to a common goal of increasing funding and programs for affordable multifamily housing. And once everybody bought into that goal, we were able to work together to achieve what it is that we all want to achieve. So I think bringing people to the table and kind of settling on that common goal is really key.
Very fair point, Todd, and couldn't agree more. Okay, so got the next question. Jason, Phil, I know you are both based in Colorado. According to a recent study, Jason, Todd, according to a recent study from Conflict to Compassion, the state of Colorado will have to add over 54,000 housing units a year by 2026, just to keep pace with population growth and other high growth areas that are facing similar challenges. How do we make sure that we can address the need for more housing while making sure they are affordable and sustainable? And Jason, we'll start with you, sir.
Well, I always hate it when people say that's a good question, but that is a really great question. I think that has been pondered for a very long time, and I think that I personally am not familiar with the study. I apologize for not looking at that before we came on. But look, I mean, we need to really start grinding down and making sure that we can find a way that people can afford homes. The building, right? I mean, Denver itself is actually landlocked. So, when the building starts happening, it's obviously going to start branching out into the outer regions of the metro area here. one thing that I still have to beat up on is that the building standards have to be monitored and upheld, and make sure that the construction standards are high, make sure that they are built well, you know, without getting into a whole bunch of other stuff, that has to be done, right? I mean, if the building standards are upheld, then the product that the people are going to be able to live in are going to be able to be affordable, sustainable, long lasting. You know, you can go down the list. And of course, I go back to my original statement where recyclables, you know, that's a big part of it. I think you want to keep the price down a little bit. You can use recyclables and develop great products. So I think I'll just leave it there and go on and go ahead and let Phil take over from there.
And hey, Phil, anything else you want to share on top of what Jason just provided?
No, I can't really add to that. Thank you.
Okay. And Todd, is there anything you would like to weigh in on?
Yeah, you know, I think it comes down to just more production, and you know, 74% of low-income renters in Colorado spend more than 50% of their income on rent, right? So there's a real need for more affordable housing. The low-income housing tax credit is the single largest source of funding for affordable housing, and there's legislation pending in Congress that would dramatically increase the amount of tax credits available. So to build more affordable housing and to preserve existing affordable housing in Colorado and throughout the country. And I think we can combine with that other legislation that would deep energy based adjustment, which would provide additional tax credits to low-income properties that are going to reduce their energy use by 50%. So combining that with providing more tax credit authority, I think would give Colorado significant tools to start addressing that production gap.
Absolutely, Todd. And when you think about those tax credits and how they can apply and make that technology, that energy efficiency, that sustainable home more affordable, you know, that's something very much that we like to partner and work together as we come out with, you know, the latest and greatest in technology that's going to make a difference on the environment and keep the families in their homes, you know, comfortable while being very energy efficient in the home. So I think we have time for one more quick question, and Todd, I'm going to direct this one to you. Even as we work to address climate change, we see the impacts of severe weather on our housing stock, whether it's the threat of wildfires out west or flooding and hurricanes in the south and east, it was just, I know, definitely top of mind and in all our hearts right now in the south. So how can we best balance the need for making housing more efficient with also making them more resilient? So Todd?
Yeah, I think we start by acknowledging that housing is infrastructure, like roads and bridges. Affordable housing is a community asset. It's important to community health. And it was really unfortunate that housing was not included in the Senate's bipartisan infrastructure bill. You know, I think we need an all-in approach to addressing the climate crisis. You know, as we've seen throughout the year, climate extremes are already becoming more commonplace. And so in addition to investing in climate mitigation through energy efficiency, we have to really acknowledge that we need to adapt to climate impacts that are already happening today. You know, at NHT, we have started to try to assess the climate vulnerability of affordable housing. We recently worked with Climate Central to assess the risk that sea level rise poses to affordable housing by overlaying the location of affordable housing to in areas where flooding is expected due to sea level rise. And we found that 25,000 housing units will experience repeated tidal flooding by 2050 due to sea level rise. And by tidal flooding, I mean flooding that can occur on a sunny day because of the higher tides caused by sea level rise. So not even taking into consideration storm surges. And so affordable housing is, you know, particularly vulnerable, more vulnerable than other types of housing to these climate impacts because the buildings are, you know, older, lack upgraded materials, have older systems, have limited capital and rental income to really make repairs and rebuild after a climate disaster. And also the disaster recovery subsidies don't often make it to affordable housing owners. So really just to emphasize that resiliency is very, very important to preserving affordable housing. Having said that, it's true that energy efficiency is also a resilience strategy, right? So if you're improving the envelope of a building, you're able to then to maintain the temperature, the indoor temperature, if the power goes out, for example, right? So, I think we can invest both in resiliency and energy efficiency. And I think, frankly, we have to do both given the situation we're facing today with the seriousness of the climate impact. So.
Thank you so much, Todd, and absolutely. And speaking to, efficiency and resiliency, that's where we all have to partner together. Is Carrier's belief. Carrier wants to partner with our construction teams, right? Engineers and architects and owners, as well as advocacy groups and policymakers, as we've discussed today. And it's a real opportunity, right, to keep these buildings not only safe and healthy, but energy efficient for the long haul, for the life of the building, to really deliver on our commitments out there. So with that, I want to say thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you very much for making the time and sharing your expertise and your experience and your wisdom, and looking forward to continuing the conversation. So with that, Andrew, I'll hand it back over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Meredith, and thank you to all of the panelists for a really interesting and very useful conversation. And I think it's very clear, as we've listened to both Congressman Perlmutter and also the panelists, that it really is important to remember that buildings are a part of infrastructure. And hopefully, as Congress continues to debate infrastructure, they will recognize that. But it's also up to all of us to make that point and make it clear to Congress that our housing stock and all buildings in our communities are an integral part of our nation's infrastructure, and we have to make sure that they are invested in, that they are supported, and that's what we hope to do. And so we just want to say to everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you, Meredith. Great job moderating the panel, and of course, thank you to Carrier for the great work that all of you are doing. And certainly, if folks want to learn more about Building Action and how you can join the coalition, please find us online at buildingaction.org. We look forward to doing more of these events as the month and the year continues. And with that, we'll say thank you so much for joining us and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much.